Great expectations? Let's talk about it on this episode of Pushback.
Go, 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 Jonny, go, 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 Jonny, go, 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 Jonny, go, go.
If you're concerned about the direction our culture is heading, then maybe it's time to push back.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Pushback. I'm Dr. Jonny, and we are rejoicing as a family today. One great thing about doing a podcast like I'm doing each and every week is that it really just gets rolled into my life and the things that are happening, and the topics that I'm choosing, the things that we're talking about tend to be in very real time as they unfold in my life and the things that are happening in this world around us. But I'm very happy to report that I am a papa once again. My son Benjamin and his wife just had a baby yesterday. And so we are rejoicing over Raylin Jacob. It's Raylin. He's 7 pounds, 1 ounce, 22 and a half inches long. So he's tall and perfect and beautiful. And we are celebrating this new life in our family and just welcoming him. He is, as most of you know, we have 8 children, and all of us were present with their spouses and families, and we descended on this hospital to welcome Raylin into the family and to meet him and to love him and to rejoice in this miracle of childhood and birth. And I never get used to it. I'm trained as a family physician and to do obstetrics, and I did full-time obstetrics for 10 years as well. And every single time I would have the privilege of delivering a baby, it was truly a miracle. And I still am overwhelmed by that and by the reality of his creation. And Raylin is no exception to that. He is an unbelievable gift. This podcast is entitled Great Expectations, and I'm certainly dedicating this to my new grandson, Raylin. And Great Expectations, the title is actually from a Dickens novel called Great Expectations. And the moral theme of Great Expectations is really pretty simple. It's about affection and loyalty and conscience being more important than social achievement and wealth and class. And the character in Great Expectation is he has a desire to sort of reinvent himself, to rise to a higher social class. And I want to talk about that in relationship to this child who was just born into our family as I'm sitting there holding this baby. And there's this word expectation. And here we are, a new baby, I'm a papa, holding a newborn and seeing a life of such great value. And I believe everybody who's listening to this podcast can relate to that. There's little doubt, and we've talked about this, kind of central to the heart of this podcast is baby Raylin is being born into a battlefield. And sometimes we wish that wouldn't be the case. However, he's also born as a warrior. With a job to do, and he's born for such a time as this. We believe that with our whole heart as we see the preciousness and the innocence of this baby. We also know that the world needs him, and he is being born with great purpose and with great value, not only to us as a family, but to the world itself. And there's something sobering about that. And yet, as I've said so many times on this podcast, the front lines is the safest place that he can be. Where he is being called to and being drawn to is the safest place that he can be, even though it's not always comfortable. And I've never prayed, not even once, for my children to be comfortable. And I continue that on with my grandchildren. My prayer for them is not for them to be comfortable. It's not for them to reinvent themselves to rise to a higher social class so that they can experience the greater comfort of life. No, they are being raised and reared to change the world and to be injected into this world for a reason and for a purpose. And the life that Raylan is going to lead is no exception to that. And as I'm holding this baby, it would be, the conversation happens in my head of expectation versus expectancy. You know that I like to break down words, and this isn't going to be a long podcast because I have a baby to go admire. But expectation versus expectancy. I think those words are powerful. Expectation, they seem synonymous, but they're actually emotionally different. And they both deal with anticipated behaviors, anticipated life experiences. But expectation is about something that we impose on people. Whereas expectancy is about the joyful anticipation of what is to come. It's about acceptance of what is to happen. Expectancy is looking for what God is going to do, where expectation is hoping that they do something in some preconceived box. Oftentimes we do that with God himself. We have an expectation of how we believe that he is supposed to behave and how he is supposed to look and how he is supposed to drive and guide our lives. And yet we are actually supposed to live with an expectancy of what he is going to do in our life, and whatever he chooses to do is good. Expectation says, God, I expect that you will do X. It says, God, I expect you to do X in a certain way. Where expectancy says, Lord, I don't know how or what you will do, but I know you will do something, and I know it will be good. God always does something good, and he is always and continually working in and through our lives. That is just facts. That is truth. And I speak that over my new grandson, that we don't place an expectation on him. We live in that place of expectancy of what he is and what he is going to become. It's such a privileged place to stand as a papa, as a grandpa in his life. And to Raylan Jacob, we don't impose any expectation on your life, but we assume the posture of expectancy to whatever the Lord is calling you to in this life. Your family is and will be the greatest cheering section, encouraging you and cheering you on in this life. And whatever he calls you to, no matter how hard, no matter how difficult, no matter how uncomfortable, you will never be alone. And that's what family provides. And that's what we are to you. We are your greatest expectation. And Raylan, my prayer for you is that you never feel like you have to reinvent yourself. Because what the Lord created you to be is enough. And we stand with expectancy of what that will be and the good in your life. See, we can truncate what I just read and say, expectancy says, Lord, I know that I don't know how or what you will do, but I know that you will do something. And we can just truncate it there and say, okay, well, that's probably good enough because he's God and he's directing things. But this next sentence, this next phrase is so important. And I know that it will be good, because it speaks to the center heart of who God is and his goodness. And so I speak that over my grandson. I speak that over you. I speak that over your life. I've said so many times to my wife that I always feel like when we teach, the greatest outcome is that people feel comfortable in their own skin. They feel comfortable in who they were created to be. Some things need to be restored, some things need to be shaken, some things need to be rewired. That is true for all of us who have lived life and sometimes have thought incorrectly. But if we teach them correctly, then maybe they will leave the instruction that we've given them feeling more comfortable in their own skin. My prayer for my grandson, my prayer for you, is that you are comfortable in your own skin, because God created you. He created you just how he wanted you to be. And there is such peace and there is such life in that. It doesn't always look like we think it ought to look. And when we do, we're actually placing an expectation on God to conform to our image. That's an ugly thing to say, isn't it? It's almost hard to say that we are looking for God to be created in our image, our expectation, that he is supposed to look a certain way of how we expect him to look. It's almost hard for me to even say those words because we are created in his image and we live in an expectancy that no matter how or what his creation looks like, it's going to be good. And I'm holding this baby and I'm seeing the face of God in him and the beauty of who he is and what he was created to be. And I don't put a box around it. It's open box versus closed box. I don't close him in a box and hope that he lives up to some type of expectation that I have for him, that his grandma has for him, that his parents have for him, or even a box that he puts around himself. But I pray that he would live in an open box and this expectancy of what God has for him, because it's so much bigger and it's so much greater than I could ever imagine or hope for him. And so I remove that off of you, Raylan, Jacob. Because a life surrendered, a life lived in an open box with an open hand is the greatest gift we can ever give the one, capital O, who has everything. What do you give a gift to someone that has everything? What kind of gift do you give? Well, our amazing, all-powerful, almighty God has everything. So what kind of gift can we give him? A life surrendered. That's it. It's all that we have. An open hand. What gift can we give our children as parents? We can live with that place of expectancy and we cheer them on to everything that they were created to be, but we don't close them in a box of expectation so that they can conform to what we think they should look like. This podcast is being most likely released on Thanksgiving Day. And last week I released a message, or it might have been 2 podcasts ago, about how Thanksgiving is inseparably tied to even our prayers and our petitions to God. But the highest form of thanksgiving, the greatest demonstration of thanksgiving on this earth is a life laid down. And now I'm preaching to myself. A life laid down. Father, I am so thankful and I'm so grateful for my life in any form that you have it. That I surrender and I give over to you the comings and the goings and the ways of my life. Any way that you want it to look, I surrender it to you. I lay down my comfort. I lay down even that place of wanting to guide and direct my own life. And I allow you to lead me by my Spirit. I think one of the hardest things that we can do is to actually surrender our soul. By surrendering our soul to God, to allow him to steer and to guide us, to train us how to think and how to feel and how to act. Our behaviors can be trained through the loving hand of a Father as we surrender to him, as we fully understand our position in him in heavenly places. So Raylan, Jacob, this podcast is for you because you're this new life that I'm holding into my hands with tears in my eyes. So grateful to the Lord of not only who you are, but I sit with great expectancy of who you will become. We believe in you as a family, and we're with you every step of the way. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and I want to wish you and your family the happiest of Thanksgivings. That the Spirit of the Lord would so encompass you and your hearts this Thanksgiving. That the Spirit of of gratitude and that place of thanks before the Thanksgiving. We enter his gates with thanksgiving in our heart, that place where we actually enter into his presence, that you would feel him as you celebrate him. That is my prayer for you this Thanksgiving. So on behalf of GoFam Ministries, on behalf of the Pushback Podcast, on behalf of my family, I wish you and yours a very happy Thanksgiving. So now let's go together to set and shape the culture.